elected members and IMSB member. So first of all, apologies. So apologies from Councillor Casey and Councillor Newman, Councillor Quacks and Member Wilcox. Is it Councillor Wax, Councillor Quacks and Member Wilcox for lateness?
Happy to move.
I presume it is. Anyone else?
Happy to move, particularly Casey.
Thank you. I'll seconder for that. Councillor Philippina, I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Are there any particular declarations of interest this morning? No? If anything comes to mind, please just let us know. There are no petitions, so we'll move on to public input. Oh, sorry, confirmation of minutes of the 14th of March. I'll move those, including the confidential seconder, Councillor Philippina. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. Now, public input. We've declined one public input on chemical spraying of weeds, and it's Leonie Bartram. We don't have it on the agenda, and we've pretty much heard on the issue every meeting, and we are in touch with the group to make it clear that when the weed group has something to report back, we will do so, and they are most welcome to speak. And also that, you know, we have our community weed group that is up and running, and we will have our elected member weed group running. So, you know, there are plenty of opportunities for people to input. But we have, I have, on your behalf, accepted the request by Andy Higgs to present to us on an Auckland bike share pilot. Now, just before I invite Andy and the team up, I just have to do a little bit of an explanation of this. You'll be aware that Auckland Transport is working with a variety of players out in the market to look at a long-term bike share scheme. So we just need to be clear, we don't make that decision. That decision won't be made at this committee. So this is in no way to be interpreted as some sort of special deal for one particular group. We welcome and will look forward to seeing a whole bunch of players out in the market have a crack at getting a bike scheme, a consortium of organisations doing a bike scheme, or a variety of bike schemes running in Auckland. But the most important thing, and I want to acknowledge Councillor Chris Darby's ongoing advocacy, particularly in the cycling area, the most important thing we want to see is bikes on the streets of Auckland, making it as easy as we can for people to cycle. And nothing is better than an electric bike. And as a committed and passionate and somewhat evangelical e-biker, I think e-bikes will be the answer to all our problems. Having had to bring my car this morning because I have a meeting off-site until late tonight, I had to come by car. It was a disastrous experience. It took me an hour and a half, whereas my trusty e-bike from Te Atatu Peninsula takes 45 minutes every day. Rain, shine, hail, dark, light, whatever. And so I will now make myself be quiet, and I promise not to speak or editorialise or evangelise on this issue. I'll invite Andy forward to talk briefly and in a circumspect way about your ideas for a pilot.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for the introduction. I know many of you and enjoyed my time on the board of ATEED and as an exec at this council, and you know, I led the partnerships initiative in the early days, so I know the challenges and the opportunities. I'd like to introduce Murray Robertson from Downer, is on our team, and Darlene Tana from eCycles New Zealand. And Darlene's going to introduce the star of this morning's presentation, our state-of-the-art public pedal electric bike from the vegan. And Rob Mayo is here, he's our transport advisor. Thanks, Rob.
Tēnā rā tātou katoa. Is it all right if I speak without microphone, because, you know, the star of the show, she's just back here. O pai tērā?
I think it might pick you up, actually. If you speak clearly, I think the mic will actually pick you up from there. The reason why we're a little bit careful about mics is we're going out to millions of viewers. Actually, we're probably going out to about 4 viewers, but they'll be really interested.
No pressure then, Kari. All right, kei te pai. Well, first off, a bit of introduction maybe. My husband and I, Christian Hoff-Nielsen, run a company called eCycles NZ, and for the past 3 and something years, we've been active in our kaupapa to shake up transport here in Aotearoa, get more and more people moving their bodies on 2 wheels. And so eCycles NZ was born out on Waiheke Island. And we were sitting down last night and thinking, how many people have we actually put up onto electric bikes? Anybody want to hazard a guess? In 3.5 years, we've done 65,000 people onto electric bikes. And we're building capability all that time across Auckland. Now, we want to stay at the forefront of where electric transport is rolling. And part of that story led us towards Bevegan, which is a company based in Canada. They're one of 3 or 4 players around electric bike share in the world. And we cheekily invited them out to our Waiheke Island over the Christmas New Year period. They came down, we imported their demonstrator model, and we had a tutu around the island, and we thought it was really great. We gave some constructive feedback, and they were receptive in taking it. Now, since they went away, they came back to us and asked us to be their agents here in New Zealand. We took some time to think about that because we wanted to make sure that we'd have sufficient capability to be able to, be available for on-the-ground support. And after some kōrero and with our teams of guys that we're training up, we said, hell yeah, let's go for this. And so I'm just going to introduce the bike quickly because having put so many people onto electric bikes, we're cognizant of the kinds of things that get people there. And the first thing that attracted me to this, lovely, is the ease. Because I don't have to explain anything about where's the motor or how to change gears or anything like that. The only thing that a customer needs to do is to change the seat height to the position of ride, and then they get on it and ride. The Bevegan bike has a Dyname proprietary system, which doesn't just, help you as you pedal, but it glides you along. So it's a very different ride proposition to electric bikes as we know them currently in Aotearoa. Having said that, she's got all the bells and whistles, my darling. She's got cadence and torque sensing. She's got lights front and rear. I love it because she's got a really good bangable basket, and you can smack the hula out of this and she's fine. So she's going to stand up. It's a woman. Tests of, everyday different usability.
Treated gently.
So that's it.
Okay, thanks, Darlene. The reason we thought that was useful is that this is a complicated project, and it's not something you just magic up, and you can't just go and enter this business from nowhere, and it's going to take time. And we're having done a lot of projects. As you know, we're a big believer in innovation in an agile way and in an iterative way, and we've been working on this project for a while. Before we knew about the Auckland transport process, the initial plan was to do it on private land, but working with Downer and others, we became conscious that the best benefit for this pilot was going to be on public land. The property owners also had that feedback. It is the best spots, and it's not going to be an easy thing to make successful. There's plenty of examples of bike shares that have failed, and
Back a little bit, Andy.
stand back a bit, sorry. Yep. And so in terms of the business case, we know that there's plans to work on a business case, but this is something that's been unproven. There's no precedent. The business case is challenging, and all cities are different. So our plan was we put together a group of companies to stand up a pilot. And the idea was to, and we'll talk to the locations in a second. We're interested in land access. In no way are we trying to undermine anyone else. We're just here to help Auckland Council and Auckland Transport achieve the objectives. And if an outcome of this meeting is that you are planning to fund it and you are planning to fast track it, we're happy to wait for the process to take its toll, but it will run its course. But our experience is these processes really, with innovation, really produce an outcome in the short term, and we still think a pilot, the EV car share is a good example of something we put a lot of work into, and it didn't go anywhere. Council in that case was going to be an enabler, and there was no money, and so it's not easy to make these things happen. There's a number of companies that are very motivated this year to do it. There's a 6-month lead time when you order these bikes, so if we're going to do anything for this summer, that's the summer of 17-18, we have to order the bikes in the next month, which is before the EOI comes out. So that means another year we're waiting, and the city is already difficult to navigate. Uber is more expensive than you think. The Link bus takes 30 minutes from the bottom of town to Ponsonby, and we think a really good product like this, it will give Aucklanders a good option for getting around. Everyone I've spoken to would give it a try, and there's a lot of innovation in the marketing of these things because they don't automatically, work, and they don't automatically connect with people, and we've got a team of experts that can do that. And what we're here today is to say, here's an opportunity. We would really value some political support with AT and their process. We're not asking for any favours. We're not asking for any funding. We're not asking for any special treatment. The vegan have agreed to take the bikes back after a year if it's not successful. So there's very little risk. All the risks are mitigated. And we think it'll be a great thing for Auckland. And I'll just finish by asking Murray, because I know we're probably short of time now, to just briefly speak to the locations and why we chose those locations in this hilly CBD we have.
Thanks, Andy. So the idea of the pilot is that would be 10 bikes operated in the Auckland CBD, and 100 bikes at 10 locations in the CBD, and that's we believe is a decent amount of bikes that can be used across a certain amount of hubs that offers connectivity. We've already had some advice this morning on where we could potentially do that at the last mile solution. I guess it's trying to understand how can we stand up a pilot that has the most value for Aucklanders to give us both information about the bikes, how they'll work, and where the benefit really is. So the locations we've initially looked at are around the hubs, and as Andy said, the feedback we've had just looking at it initially is that if they're tied to existing Auckland transport hubs, we can provide the best level of service to actually demonstrate some real value. So those are, and they're in the document that Andy's already shared with you, and that's the area that we think that needs some focus in terms of how can we work with Auckland Transport and Council to provide something that's really useful and a meaningful pilot. And and I think, like Andy said, we've got a lot of companies that have come together who are very passionate about it. I'm probably the voice of reason from the person that represents a company that looks at long-term contracts. And I guess for me, the importance is actually standing up something that is proven and can be really valuable. And so from Downer's perspective, we have multimodal contracts in Australia for transport. So that's where the interest is for us. But more importantly, from my perspective, I think it's a great initiative. I'm really passionate about it. But we do welcome any feedback we can on where the pilot might best add value. And so those assumptions are really what we've made, but we really welcome any feedback on that space.
Okay, so we've probably got time for a couple of questions. Just remembering this is our chance to just understand something that might be happening via Auckland Transport, but just the reason for picking this up in this committee in the long term is we are charged with climate change innovation and carbon reduction, and obviously this fits right into that. So I've got Councillor Simpson, Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Lee, and probably that might be all the time we've got. So Councillor, sorry, we saw them in a slightly different order. It's Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that. Tell me, how would you prevent theft of these bikes?
Each of the bikes are GPS tracked, so we know exactly where, I should say Bevegan at this point in time knows exactly where each of its bikes are in the world. They've rolled out in 5 different locations across the States principally and in Portugal, and they know where each bike is. This morning, before I left, the demonstrator model is housed at our Bikes and Barber Shop in Newmarket, and they were able to pick us up and then watch me ride down here, and they know she's sitting in the meeting right now. So that's going to help us enormously.
A quick supplementary, if I may. So if you were to be successful, would you make that data available? Because I think that would help frame, if people were using them, where they were actually taking them.
Yes, if we were in partnership with Auckland Council and Auckland Transport, we would definitely make the data available. And again, at no obligation to Council.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fletcher.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and it's lovely to welcome you here with this exciting proposal. I know from the time that I sat on the board of Auckland Transport just how hard it is to get these kinds of initiatives up. And the conclusion that I came to, and I really welcome what you are proposing, but somehow to bring the hop card into it, that if you're looking at all modes of transport, increasingly we want to see the hop card being the ticket to ride. Have you given any consideration to that in terms of any proposal?
Yes, well, that hop card database is extremely valuable, and we see it as a really good promotional channel, but we don't imagine we'd be given access to that as part of the trial. Normally that would be reserved for the winner of the EOI process, but the bike is very easy to activate with the hop card. It works off RFID, radio frequency identification, and we would be partnering with the car shares like City Hop. We'd also partner with the AA, other issuers of cards. So that's definitely a strategy for pushing the bike share.
And in supplementary to that, have you, in terms of this presentation, have you modelled it on any international cities comparable to Auckland?
Yeah, that's why we're so keen on a business case, because we've looked at every city, from Madrid, where they rolled out e-bikes and they got 20 uses per day per bike in the middle of summer in July, city I know well, to some of the US cities like Baltimore, where it's between 2 or 3 uses a day. But really this is around subscriptions. It's kind of the gymnasium model, and we've got to drive, that's why we want a year trial. 12-month subscriptions and 6-month subscriptions. That's where all the real service revenue is. And believe me, this thing isn't fundable by corporates alone. We've supplied a few longer proposals. We've shared some of our IP around what sponsorship's worth, and sponsorship will only fund about 25% of it. The key to making this work is the marketing and getting people to use it. And a lot of people we've talked to, including Next Bikes, who we want to involve with this process, because they've got a lot of good knowledge themselves, is that people don't necessarily just use it, and a lot of the models around the world are based on public sector funding and support and subsidy, and that's not our intention. We want to prove we can run this without public sector funding, because it's a good service and people are going to use it. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
I think just to add to that, we definitely are very passionate about the concept of mobility as a service, and so you would have integrated ticketing, and whoever was to do a pilot, that would be in the right interest, that somebody shouldn't have to go from one mode of payment to another. Very, very important that it's a connected service. So that's absolutely where we see this going.
Thank you.
Good question. Councillor Lee.
Good morning. Thank you for the presentation. Question for Darlene. Kia ora, Darlene. I think it was about 3 years ago you came to see us at the Transport Committee, or the Infrastructure Committee, I think it was, and we went in to bat for you on Waiheke Island at Matiatia to get you a slot there at the car park, and Auckland Transport, shall we say, was less than enthusiastic. I think they've moved on since then with their plans for cycleways and so on. But have you noticed any change in regard to your situation on Waiheke?
Kia ora, Mike. With respect to that, Auckland Transport opened a tendering process for commercial leases down at Matiatia Ferry. And this was the sticking point at the last meeting, because there was no process available at that time. But they did launch that in December. They said that they would notify the winning applicants end of 2016, but pushed through until the third week of January. We are all still waiting.
Really? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you do better in this one.
Might be something
sure
the
you will.
local councillor could pick up, Councillor Lee. Right, well, thank you. I'd like to